For over a century, the Golden Death Mask of Tutankhamun has been the most famous face pulled from the ground in the history of archaeology. And in late 2025 and early 2026, a story spread rapidly across YouTube claiming a brand new technology called quantum resonance imaging had scanned the mask and revealed it was never made for the boy king at all, that a hidden name had been recovered beneath the surface, belonging to Queen Nefertiti. Before we go any further, I want to be straight with you. That specific quantum scan story is not a verified event. There's no peer-reviewed paper behind it, no statement from Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities, and the researchers named in those videos don't appear anywhere in the actual academic literature. But here's what makes this story worth telling anyway. The real underlying mystery, the pierced ears, the rushed burial, and the genuine scholarly debate over whether this mask was originally made for someone else entirely, is completely real, and honestly, stranger than the fictional version. I'm Arif Hassan, and this is AH History. Start where it always starts. November 1922, the Valley of the Kings. British archaeologist Howard Carter chiseled a small hole into a sealed chamber, held a candle up, and when his assistant asked if he could see anything, Carter's answer became legendary. Yes, wonderful things. Inside were more than 5,000 artifacts crammed into 4 small rooms: gold chariots, jeweled thrones, painted statues. But nested deep inside 3 coffins was the object that would become the face of ancient Egypt for the rest of human history: the Golden Death Mask, weighing over 10 kilograms of solid gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli, turquoise, obsidian, and quartz, carved on the back with a protective spell from the Book of the Dead. To the ancient Egyptians, gold was the literal material of the gods, and the mask wasn't decoration. It was believed to be the anchor between a pharaoh's soul and his body in the afterlife. For a century, the story attached to it stayed simple. Tutankhamun died suddenly around age 19, probably from an infected leg fracture, and his advisors had 70 days, the strict religious window for royal mummification, to prepare everything for burial. They built the tomb, made the mask, and buried him. But almost immediately, small details that didn't fit kept surfacing. The tomb itself was unusually small and cramped for a king, more befitting a private citizen. Some wall paintings were unfinished. The stone sarcophagus had chips consistent with being forced through doorways too narrow for it. Some statues in the tomb had faces that didn't resemble Tutankhamun. Some jewelry appeared designed for a woman's body. Some coffins and containers carried names that had visibly been scraped off and rewritten. Whoever assembled this burial was working fast, and not everything in it had originally been made for the boy who ended up inside it. Then there are the ears. The mask's earlobes are pierced, clear holes sized for earrings. In ancient Egyptian royal iconography, adult male pharaohs were not depicted wearing earrings. That was a marker reserved for children and women. An adult male pharaoh's sacred burial mask, meant to represent him for eternity, showing pierced ears would have been a real violation of that symbolic language. Researchers have noted this detail since at least the 1970s, and it's never had a fully settled explanation. Some scholars also noted the face itself looks more delicate and fine-boned than other confirmed depictions of Tutankhamun, and that the gold on the face carries a subtle color difference from the headdress, a faint reddish tint suggesting it may have been processed differently or sourced separately. A real theory formed from this, discussed in academic circles rather than press conferences. When Tutankhamun died unexpectedly with no mask yet prepared and the 70-day clock already running, someone in authority may have taken an already completed mask made for someone else and modified it, filling the ear holes, replacing the face, and recarving the name to bury the king on schedule. The obvious candidate researchers point to is Nefertiti, chief wife of the pharaoh Akhenaten, who ruled roughly 40 years before Tutankhamun, and whose limestone bust, discovered in 1912, is one of the most reproduced images in art history. Akhenaten dismantled Egypt's traditional religious system to worship a single solar deity, moved the capital, and upended visual and political norms across the civilization. When he died, his successors tried to erase everything he'd done, and Nefertiti vanishes from the record in the middle of that erasure. There's genuine, if contested and indirect evidence she may have briefly ruled Egypt under a new throne name after Akhenaten's death, which would have entitled her to a full royal burial, mask included. If she died before Tutankhamun, and priests were scrambling to bury him on a strict deadline, the theory holds together. It couldn't be proven without looking underneath the mask's surface, and cutting into it was never going to be allowed, until an accident forced the question in 2014. During routine cleaning at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, a worker bumped the mask and the ceremonial braided beard, a golden extension symbolizing divine kingship, snapped off. What happened next became an international scandal. Instead of contacting professional conservators, museum staff reattached it themselves using fast-setting epoxy, industrial glue meant for plumbing repairs, and a visible line of hardened adhesive along the chin became public. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities brought in an international team led by German conservator Christian Eckmann to properly remove the epoxy and reattach the beard correctly. Before that repair work began, Eckmann secured permission to scan the mask using X-ray fluorescence, or XRF technology, that maps chemical composition across a surface. His reasoning? If the face had been taken from a different mask and joined to this headdress, the gold might show different chemical signatures, and any hidden inscription beneath the cartouche might leave detectable traces. After months of real scanning, the team's conclusion was that the gold in the face matched the gold in the headdress. The hieroglyphs showed no evidence of carving over an earlier inscription, and the glass inlays around the eyes were undamaged, notable because soldering a new face on would likely have generated enough heat to crack them. Based on that, the mask was declared originally and entirely made for Tutankhamun, and it went back on display. But here's the honest scientific limitation worth understanding, separate from any fictional quantum scan story. XRF is genuinely excellent at detecting chemical composition differences, solder joints, and structural discontinuities. But master goldsmiths at the height of Egyptian craftsmanship could, in principle, rework metal using gold from the same original batch, filling pierced ear holes or replacing a face section in a way that leaves no chemical signature to detect. This is exactly why some material scientists have argued Eckmann's XRF results don't fully close the question, even though it's the best real, peer-reviewed evidence we currently have. To definitively resolve it would require a technique capable of reading the metal's actual thermal and mechanical history, whether it was cast once or reheated and reworked at different points. Something genuinely difficult to do non-destructively today, which is exactly the gap the fictional quantum resonance imaging videos exploited to make their invented scan sound plausible. So where does that leave the real story? Eckmann's XRF study is the actual, documented scientific record, and it supports the mask being made for Tutankhamun. The pierced ears, the rushed burial, the repurposed jewelry and statues elsewhere in the tomb, and the scholarly Nefertiti hypothesis are all genuine and still actively discussed by Egyptologists, precisely because XRF has real limitations in detecting certain kinds of reworking. Nothing here has been definitively settled either way, and no legitimate new scan has overturned Eckmann's findings. The Golden Death Mask still sits in the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, viewed by millions of visitors a year who see the face reproduced in countless photographs and assume the story is fully closed. Whether it truly began its existence as Tutankhamun's, or started life for someone else entirely and was reworked under pressure during a desperate 70-day deadline, remains a genuinely open question in Egyptology, and Nefertiti's own tomb has never been found, her mummy never confirmed. That's a real, unresolved mystery, worth taking seriously exactly as it is, without needing an invented scan to make it interesting. If you want history covered with the real evidence and the real uncertainty left in, and the fabricated viral stories called out honestly, follow this channel, because there's a lot more of this kind of story worth telling properly.